Windsor Castle, March 18th, 2026. The first major state visit of the year, and both households are here. Kate greets the Nigerian president at the hotel, not the king or Camilla. Kate, standing at the door of the Fairmont Windsor Park in the position that used to belong exclusively to the people who outranked her, doing a job that the institution has quietly decided she is now equipped to do. Camilla arrives later, in the position the 1539 Act guarantees her. First woman in the room, highest-ranking female in the United Kingdom. Both things are true simultaneously. On paper, Camilla outranks her, but in practice, the Welsh household ran the greeting, coordinated the motorcade, and managed the first impression of the British Crown on a head of state visiting for the first time in 37 years. Nobody reported that as a power story. And here is the number that doesn't fit, 116. That is how many years passed between the last Princess of Wales who held the power to grant royal warrants and the announcement, made quietly in the summer of 2025, that the next one now holds it too. The last woman to hold that power before Kate became Queen Mary. Most coverage of this story is treating it as a personality conflict. Two women, one palace, the usual framing. Who's up? Who's down? Who gave whom a look across a banquet hall? What that framing misses is that one of them has a document, and the other is standing in a position that document helped create. This isn't a story about which woman William prefers. It's a story about what he built and what those structures do every single day, regardless of what either woman says about them publicly. The people who actually track how institutional power moves inside a monarchy consistently find the same thing. Mechanisms matter more than relationships. A household structure doesn't require anyone's cooperation to operate. A warrant-granting power doesn't need to be discussed to be real. Both of those things are now in place. Both have been running, one since September 2022, one confirmed in the summer of 2025. Neither required a public announcement to become operational. King Charles broke 116 years of precedent to hand Kate the power to grant royal warrants, a privilege that had lived exclusively with the sovereign and their consort since Queen Mary held it between 1901 and 1910. The Wales household runs on a completely independent operational structure: separate staff, separate funding, separate advisory chain. No requirement to route decisions through any other office in the institution. The warrant power changed what Kate holds inside this institution. What William built around it changed something more permanent than that, and nobody was reporting on it when it happened. If you want to understand what both of those mechanisms look like running simultaneously, subscribe now, because that is exactly where this is going.
It is my particular pleasure to wish you, Mr. President, peace, blessings, and an abundance of joy. And Ramadan Mubarak.
I just wonder, Kate and her significant dressing, which she does very well, and okay, it was the colour of she was terribly trussed up.
Here is what Kate did when the royal warrant power was confirmed. Nothing publicly, no statement about what it meant, what it represented, or how it positioned her relative to anyone else in the institution. The announcement came through her private secretary, Ian Wright, in an official statement, summer 2025, and the line that made it into print was that they were delighted to recognise and celebrate British industry. That was it. No acknowledgement of the 116-year gap. No reference to the fact that the power was being transferred from an exclusive circle that had contained exactly two names, the sovereign and the consort, since Queen Mary last held it. Kate simply showed up to the Nigerian state visit 4 months later, stood where the institution placed her, greeted a head of state on behalf of the crown, and said nothing about any of it. That is the paradox. The woman the mechanism operates around is the one person who has never once described it as a mechanism. To understand why the warrant power matters, you need to understand what it actually is.
In scenes last night that the mainstream media are either embracing or completely ignoring, King Charles adapted the most important function in our country to Ramadan. For the anti-Christian Nigerian President Tinubu, in scenes that I believe would have left the late Queen Elizabeth II turning in her grave. Indeed, is it any wonder that our head of state has more interest in Islam than Christianity these days, despite officially being the boss of the Church of England?
A royal warrant is not a certificate. It's not an honour. It's an endorsement. The right for a business to display the royal arms on its products, its premises, its global marketing, worth an estimated £1 billion in commercial value to the brands that hold it. Over 800 companies currently carry one. Until summer 2025, the only people who could grant that endorsement were King Charles and Queen Camilla. That's the circle Kate just entered, not as a guest, but through a formal transfer of institutional power, confirmed in writing, announced through official channels, taking operational effect in spring 2026. The last woman who held this before her went on to become Queen, and the institution that granted it knows exactly what precedent it's setting. This is not a gift. Inside a monarchy, a transfer of sovereign-adjacent power is a signal, quiet, administrative, deniable as protocol. But a signal nonetheless. The question is whether anyone was paying attention when it happened. Most weren't. This is not a story about two women and which one William prefers. It is a story about two institutional mechanisms that operate every day, regardless of what either woman says about them, built by the man who will one day hold the throne. That distinction matters, because the moment you see it as a personality story, you miss what is actually being constructed. Personalities change, relationships shift, mechanisms don't. A household structure funded by £23.6 million from a duchy established in 1337 doesn't require goodwill to operate. A warrant-granting power confirmed in writing doesn't need a warm relationship to be real.
Perhaps it's just no coincidence that this first Muslim state dinner was held just as the King's House of Lords gave the nod to abortion up until birth to be decriminalised. Watch the King last night.
My wife and I are delighted to welcome you to Windsor Castle here on this occasion, and we are most grateful to you for travelling during this holy month, which I acknowledge is no small sacrifice. And so it is my particular pleasure to wish you, Mr. President, peace, blessings, and an abundance of joy. And Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Here's how Buckingham Palace worked with the complicit MSM to sell this story as some sort of positive. So this was the headline: meat off the menu as King hosts state visit adapted for Ramadan. Monarch caters for Muslim customs as
The people who actually track how institutional power moves inside a monarchy, not the ones covering the outfits and the body language, but the ones watching the budget lines and the letters patent and the quiet administrative decisions that never make the front page. Those people will tell you the same thing consistently. By the time it's visible, it's already done. Both of these mechanisms were already operational before this story was being told anywhere. That is precisely why it's worth telling now. Every channel covering this story has focused on the women. The looks across the banquet hall, the seating arrangements, the body language analysts and the lip readers and the unnamed sources who were apparently standing close enough to hear everything, but not named enough to go on record. And none of them have looked at what William built around both women, because what he built is quiet, administrative, and more permanent than any public statement either woman has ever made. That is the part this video has been building toward. It was already in place before the Nigerian state visit. Both structures were already operational before Kate walked into that hotel in Windsor and greeted a head of state in a role the institution had quietly decided she was now equipped to hold. Which is why what William built alongside the warrant power has never been fully reported as the story it actually is. Before this goes any further, did Kate know about the warrant power transfer before it was formalised? Or did William make that decision and hand her the result? Drop it in the comments, because the answer changes everything about how you read what comes next.
No day carry last.
Okay, but I want to give you some facts. about the dude who he is celebrating, and I do appreciate it's not the king's choice who he welcomes for the state visit, it's the government's choice. But here are the facts about Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Vice President Kashim Shettima, who were elected on a controversial Muslim ticket. This broke decades of informal tradition in Nigeria to balance religious representation in a nation roughly split between Christians and Muslims, drawing sharp criticism from Christian leaders who argued it marginalised Christians and fueled fears of bias amid insecurity in the north and
When the future king builds two separate institutional mechanisms that operate in the same palace without requiring either woman's acknowledgement, the question stops being about the women entirely. The question is about what he has already decided. Charles is still king. The structures William built exist inside an institution his father currently leads. And yet the household runs, the warrant power transfers, the operational independence compounds, quietly, incrementally, in ways that don't require a headline to be consequential. By the time most people notice a power shift inside a monarchy, the architecture producing it has been standing for years. Both structures have been standing since at least September 2022. The warrant confirmation came in summer 2025. The Nigerian state visit, the first occasion both mechanisms were visibly operational in the same space, happened 6 months after that. None of it was reported as what it was. Summer 2025, no press conference, no ceremony. Just a statement from Kate's private secretary confirming that William and Kate would begin granting royal warrants in spring 2026. Most outlets covered it as a retail story, which brands might qualify, whether the 5-year supply threshold had been met. Nobody wrote the sentence that actually mattered. The warrant power had lived in exactly one place for over a century, with the sovereign and the consort. 2 names, 1 closed circle. Charles held it, Camilla held it, and then William opened it, using the royal prerogative his father still holds, transferring a sovereign-adjacent power to a household that already runs on independent funding, independent staffing, and an advisory structure that routes through nobody else's office. The circle that contained 2 names now contains 4. Camilla is still one of them. The room simply got bigger, before the man who expanded it even holds the throne, before the second mechanism was even built. Here is what operational independence actually looks like on a Tuesday morning. An advisor who used to copy both offices now copies one. A briefing about an upcoming state occasion goes to Kensington Palace. Not Buckingham Palace, not Camilla's office. The Wales team handles it, responds to it, acts on it, through a structure chaired by William via the Prince's Council, funded by £23.6 million from a duchy that has operated independently since 1337. 66 staff, their own communications team, their own media strategy, their own private secretary. Nobody announced this as a separation. It was formalised quietly on September 9th, 2022, the day William was appointed Prince of Wales. And it has been running every day since without requiring acknowledgement from anyone outside Kensington Palace. That is the part nobody was watching when it happened. 2 mechanisms now. The warrant power transferred, the household running independently, both operational, both silent, both permanent. Is the Wales household running independently because William wants operational efficiency, or because he has already decided whose institution this is going to be? Tell me in the comments.
middle belt. Tinubu has faced long-standing corruption allegations, while thousands of Christians are being killed in attacks targeting their faith. A report notes 3,490 Christians were killed in Nigeria. That's 72% of the global total in the year to September 2025, reporting over 7,000 in early 2025 alone from Islamist militants and herders. So this didn't have to happen, okay? There was no need to host this state visit in the middle of a Ramadan fast. And here's what I'm going to tell you. It is all part of the PSYOP, which is forcing
Here is the reasonable objection. The household separation is administrative. The warrant transfer is protocol. Both have legitimate explanations that require no intent whatsoever. Fair reading. It also requires you to ignore what happens when both mechanisms operate in the same room simultaneously. I've been watching this institution for years. Here's my read. The most sophisticated power moves inside a monarchy never announce themselves. A document doesn't need a press conference to be operational. A household doesn't need to brief against anyone to root around them. The mechanism runs, and the cumulative effect compounds quietly in ways a single decision never could. Kate has never given one interview about the warrant power or the household structure. Not one. She shows up, stands where the institution places her, says nothing about any of it. The silence isn't accidental. And that is why what the Wales household was built to do, and what it does every day without announcement, is the thing this video has been building toward. March 18th, 2026. Windsor Castle. The first state visit of the year. Kate greets President Tinubu at the hotel. The Wales household coordinates the motorcade, manages the welcome, runs the first impression of the British Crown on a visiting head of state. Then both couples meet at the Royal Dais on Datchet Road, William and Kate delivering the guests to the King and Queen. Camilla is there in pink Fiona Clare, wearing the late Queen Mother's Cartier brooches. Kate arrives later in emerald Andrew gown and the lover's knot tiara. A lip reader captures Kate leaning toward Camilla. You look beautiful. Warm, gracious, completely silent about the two mechanisms operating around both of them in that exact moment. Both households in the same frame, both structures running simultaneously, the warrant power confirmed, the operational independence 4 years in. Neither woman references any of it. The institution had already arranged the room before either of them arrived. Before I show you what this looks like from the outside, do you think Camilla knew, when she accepted the Queen Consort title, that William had already built the structure operating around her? Or did she find out the same way the rest of us did, by watching what happened next? Comment now. Spring 2026. Both mechanisms still running. Wales household staff at 66 and growing. Duchy surplus at £23.6 million. Warrant power active this month. Applications open. Brands queuing. Camilla holds her titles. First woman in every official room. The 1539 Act guarantees it. Nobody has touched that. But the household running independently of hers keeps expanding. The power that lived exclusively with her and Charles now lives somewhere else too. The institution keeps building, quietly, without a single announcement calling it what it is. Nobody has asked Camilla publicly what she makes of any of it. That silence is the most interesting thing about where this stands today. The documented record, let's put it on the table. Wales household separation, confirmed in the Sovereign Grant Annual Report 2023 to 2024. Separate funding, staffing, operational structure. Not described anywhere as informal or temporary. Royal Warrant transfer, confirmed via official palace statement summer 2025. Ian Wright on record. Operational spring 2026. First Princess of Wales to hold this power since Queen Mary. Nigerian state visit March 18, 2026. First confirmed occasion, both mechanisms operated simultaneously. Documented, photographed, reported as a fashion story. Neither the palace nor Camilla's office has addressed the timing of both decisions in relation to each other. Neither has explained why a sovereign adjacent power was extended to a household already operating independently of the consort's office. The documented record shows what was built. What it cannot show is what was intended. That's where this gets complicated. Kate's position in this story is specific. She didn't brief against Camilla, didn't maneuver for the warrant power publicly, didn't acknowledge the household separation as anything other than administrative. The private cost of holding that silence, of standing at every official engagement knowing exactly what the structures around her mean and saying nothing, is real. The narrator names it once and moves on. She shows up, stands where the institution places her, That is the character. Camilla's position is different. 35 years of waiting earned her the title, the crown, the place at the top of every official room. That kind of discipline is not nothing. The narrator won't pretend it is. But she accepted the cost of what she displaced with full awareness. Spent decades learning to navigate an institution that ultimately rewarded her patience. And now that same institution, the one she mastered, is building around a different woman using tools she cannot argue with. A document doesn't care how long you waited. There is an institutional lesson sitting underneath both of these mechanisms, and it has a name. The warrant power, the operational independence, the separate household that answers to nobody outside Kensington Palace. These structures exist in part because the institution watched what happened to the last woman who held Kate's position without a single document protecting her. Diana, Princess of Wales, named once, then stopped. The palace has never confirmed that connection publicly. What the documented picture actually shows is an institution that learned something specific from that failure and built accordingly. William understood what the institution does to women in that position when there is no structure around them. He made sure there was a structure, whether that was protection, strategy, or both. The record cannot say. Royal author Robert Jobson, who has covered this institution for decades and holds no brief for either household, has noted William's approach to the monarchy as deliberately ruthless in protecting its future shape. His characterization, not mine. Constitutional historians tracking the warrant transfer note something specific. The power is non-statutory, granted by royal prerogative, reviewable at any time, which means Charles gave it. And a future king could expand it further, restrict it, or redistribute it entirely. The combination of the household separation and the warrant transfer, in the view of those who track institutional precedence frameworks, produces a result neither decision produces alone. Two mechanisms. One direction. An operational reality that compounds every day both structures remain in place. What the documented picture actually shows is a household building institutional weight at a pace the sovereign's own office hasn't matched. Here is this narrator's position, stated once. William didn't do this accidentally. The household separation, the warrant transfer, the operational independence that compounds quietly every year. These are not the decisions of someone who hasn't thought carefully about what he is building and for whom. Nobody put this on record. But the documented behavior tells a specific story. Two mechanisms, both pointing the same direction, both built before anyone was describing them as a power shift. Camilla is not a victim of this. She is a sophisticated institutional player who spent 35 years mastering a system that has now deployed that same sophistication around a different woman. The institution didn't betray her. It simply moved, the way it always moves, quietly, permanently, without asking permission from the person most affected by the change. That is important to state clearly, because it is the thing every other version of this story has missed. Here is what this story was never about. Two women who don't like each other, a feud, a snub. That version exists. You've seen it on every other channel covering this. And it misses the point entirely. Camilla didn't lose to Kate. That framing requires a competition, and William never gave one a chance to start. What actually happened is quieter than a rivalry and more permanent than any argument. A household was built. A privilege was transferred. An institution that has been reordering people around its own interests since 1539 rearranged itself, not dramatically, not publicly, in budget lines, staff contracts, and a summer announcement most outlets filed under fashion. The mechanism doesn't need anyone's permission to run. Every engagement, every advisory briefing, every Royal Warrant application now routes through Kensington Palace instead of the office that held that power exclusively for over a century. Camilla is still in the building. The building has changed shape around her. That is a different kind of story. And it has been hiding inside the one everyone thought they were watching. There is a specific kind of ending that never announces itself. No confrontation, no press release, no moment where someone looks across a room and says out loud that things are different now. The most precise way to tell someone their time is ending is to build the future in the same building without asking for their input. That is what happened here. 66 staff, £23.6 million from a duchy operating independently since 1337. A private secretary who answers to one household and not the other. A warrant-granting power that lived, for over a century, exclusively with the sovereign and the consort. Now it lives somewhere else too. None of it required Camilla's agreement. None of it required her acknowledgement. The machinery doesn't pause for that. 35 years she waited. Through the hostility, the headlines, every year, the public made clear exactly what it thought of her being in that position at all. Outlasting all of it took a specific kind of discipline that very few people in that institution have ever managed. The crown came. The title came. The place at the top of every official room she walked into, that came too. And then the institution started building something new. Quietly, administratively, in the same corridors, at the same address, around a different woman. Not a single headline called it what it was. Both mechanisms exist today while Charles holds the throne. The Wales household runs independently. The warrant power now sits with William and Kate. The institutional weight keeps shifting, quietly, incrementally, without a press conference to make it official. But Charles is still king. The man who built these mechanisms hasn't yet become the man who holds the throne. Every structure William put in place, the separate household, the transferred privilege, the operational independence that runs without reference to anyone else's office, was constructed inside an institution he doesn't yet lead. What those structures look like the day that changes is a question nobody has asked Camilla publicly. What the warrant power means when the man who granted it becomes the sovereign. What the household separation means when the duchy surplus belongs to the man now signing the state papers. What her position looks like inside an institution run by the person who designed the mechanisms currently operating around her. That question, what the next reign does to everything William has already built, is what this channel examines next. One question before you go. Has William already decided Camilla's future, or is everything you've just watched simply protocol with no real teeth?